show for all your latest UFC news and rumors. It's Brian Coyle. It's Sean Stanley. It's the TFM Live podcast. And it's now.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the 18th edition of TFM Live, the official podcast of the FullMountMMA.com. I am Brian Coyle, and joined alongside Sean Stanley. And Sean, I would give you this normal, long, drawn-out introduction. We'd do some witty banter, but I have a bone to pick with people that were judging the main event of UFC 195. So I'm going to go on a rant. So clear the floor, because I'm calling BS on the fact that Carlos Condit lost to Robbie Lawler at UFC 195. So you ready for this?
I will let you go on the rant, but here's my piece. It's good to be on the show with you here today. The floor is all yours, sir.
Here's the problem with this was it was a fantastic fight. It's going to be the fight of the year. And I know people were like, how can it be the fight of the year 2 days in? Well, to those people, I'm like, why? First of all, why do you talk like that? And second, this was a 5-round war from end to end. The way these guys were going at each other, it was brutal to watch. I was on the edge of my seat. I was live tweeting hysterically. Like, this was everything we could have hoped for and more of this fight. The problem is, at least in my mind, the wrong fighter won. And when you evaluate this fight, it's clear that Carlos Condit won the first. It's clear that he won the fourth round. It's clear that Robbie Lawler won the fifth round and the second round. So all of that leads to the third round, which is a close round. But Condit outstruck Lawler. In my mind, he had more octagon control. When watching it back, it's clear to me, at least, that Carlos Condit won that round. And I was so confident in that opinion, and if that fifth round had lasted probably 30 seconds more, Robbie Lawler would have knocked him out. Because Lawler was going at him, fist flying, moonshots landing. These guys were on Dream Street with 10 seconds left. They were kind of just swinging back and forth. And if Lawler had connected one more time, it would have been lights out. And now, when it comes to the decision, I pretty much all planned it out. All right, this is where they're going. Okay, we need a rematch of this. It will be outstanding because you can't match something like this. Tyron Woodley is going to be so pissed off because he's going to get skipped over again. And then they gave it to Lawler. And to me, it made no sense. It was kind of like the champion's advantage in a way.
But isn't that what should be, though?
But
you have to beat the champion to become the champ, right?
I thought Carlos Condit beat the champion.
Yeah, but I think you're biased because you wrote the article. The three
because
reasons
I wrote
why.
The article?
Yeah, I think that's where you're coming from.
No, not at all. I love Robbie Lawler. I mean, come on. How could you not love the way Robbie Lawler fights? That's for sure. Because Lawler's a complete knockout artist. It's insane the way he fights. It makes no sense. He takes way too much punishment for a champ. This guy's a champion, and he gets punched on repeatedly over and over and over. It's not smart the way he fights. But he can take that punishment. He can throw a ruthless amount. I mean, pardon the pun. A ruthless amount of punches. And this guy,
I see what you did there.
Yeah, it was like it's a ridiculous amount of power that he puts into these. Basically, what he does. And Condit fought the way. I mean, they both fought the way we lined it up, literally. You can go back and look at the article on the FullMountMMA.com, but these guys fought the way we thought they would. Condit was measured. He was attacking. He was coming from all angles. Lawler was brawling. I mean, he didn't take him down as much as I thought he should have. But at a certain point, Lawler went in there in that fifth round. Is like, I have to knock him out. The mentality that they both had was, I have to knock this dude out. And it provided incredible theater. The best fifth round that I've ever seen, to me at least. And just, I thought Condit beat him. And I don't think Condit can literally put together a better fight without knocking out Robbie Lawler. So I was, I used the word robbed when I tweeted it out. like, and a whole bunch of people came out after saying, "Don't use the word rob. It wasn't a robbery. It was a close fight." Yes, it was a close fight, but the way this is all like gone out after, it's a shame because Carlos Condit basically said after the fight, "If I didn't win this one, I'm considering retirement," which sucks because he's such an entertaining fighter. And to me, I thought he won. And if you're going to do a rematch, I don't think, like, how could he have gotten so close and you're still going to give him a rematch if he didn't, like to me, it's like you win, then you do the rematch. So it's just a weird setup. I mean, it's a fantastic fight. I thought it was better than Lawler McDonald.
But let me ask you something, though, because if it would have worked out the way you are saying, wouldn't you think that it was kind of a fixed fight?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying.
No, but I know what I'm saying. But I mean, I'm just saying, to me, like, that would have been a setup to say, okay, this is going to be a rematch, so they're going to give it to Condit, so it can be, the rematch coming the next fight. And, I mean, I was listening, following along your live tweets, so, but I just think that sometimes with these MMA fights, I mean, it's been seen before. You don't leave it in the judge's hands because you don't know what they're looking at.
I mean, the judges were weird all night. Like Stipe Miocic, I mean, God bless him for knocking out Andre Arlovsky in the first round. Which
we were off on that one, weren't we?
Oh hell yeah! I mean,
it'll be a cautious fight.
Yeah, I had never, to be honest, I had never seen Miocic do anything of note. To me, that was like, whoa, this guy's a heavyweight contender. Like, he's a good heavyweight, but he knocked out Arlovsky flat like that. I've never, like, he has hands, man. And I mean, he gets the next title shot. I don't care if Velasquez and Verdum put on an epic showdown and Velasquez wins. Miocic could, like, that's bar none. I mean, just in my mind, I thought Condit won it. And you're right. You don't leave it in the hands of the judges because this can happen, and you can get screwed over if that's the way you thought the fight went. Dana White had it 3-2 Condit. But he said, "I'm not a judge, so nobody probably gives a bleep what I think." That's how I had it. And I think the fight is the rematch. I think Condit most certainly deserves another shot at the belt. The problem is, like I said, he may never fight again. He has to evaluate. He said, quote, "I have to evaluate, but there's a possibility that this might be the last one." If he retires, Tyron Woodley, who, I mean, was pretty good, at least on Fox Sports 1 when I was watching him as a guest analyst. And for him, it's a tough position to be in because if they do the rematch, he's got to wait even longer. And remember, he didn't even fight Johnny Hendricks. Hendricks had the weight cut issue, and Woodley didn't win by default, was granted a title shot by default. And Woodley, remember, fought Condit, but Condit tore his ACL in that fight. So we don't know how that fight would have went if Condit was healthy. And you don't want to put Condit and Woodley against each other because then Lawler is sitting idle. I don't think Lawler will be champion for much longer the way he fights, which, I mean, it's just the way it is.
Yeah, I agree.
But I was just disappointed in the fact that I thought Condit won the fight. But regardless, it was an amazing fight. It will be the best fight of the year. I don't see how somebody tops that from end-to-end 5-round action. I don't think you can top that fight, period. I just don't see it.
I will take your word on that one. I was not able to watch. I will go back and watch it now. I mean, I've seen your live tweet and everything like that. But yeah, definitely, I'll go back and take a look at this fight.
It's that third round closely. I want to get your input on that because a lot of people, like John Anik, put this out on Twitter. He seems like 90% of the fans, fighters / media had the fight for Condit. Yet 2 of the 3 scorecards that matter didn't. And he said tough sport, which it is. I mean, you can talk about judging and whether there should be more judges, whether there should be guys in excuse me. I mean, should they be isolated from the crowd? Because, I mean, when Lawler nails those big shots, everyone goes nuts.
But let me ask you a question. Aren't they supposed to be looking for, like, certain things to like, score on?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about significant strikes. You're talking about octagon control. You're talking about takedowns, which, for some reason, I mean, everyone's like, "Oh, takedown!" Like the way, like overall, like it's not a it's specified, but it's not, which is why you never want to leave it in the judges' scorecards. I mean, the Tumenov Larkin fight earlier on, that one was a little bit iffy too. The way they scored that, was a split decision for Tumenov, and I thought clearly the Russian had won it. So, I mean, the judges were kind of funny all night, which, regardless of whether you want to disagree with that or not, but this is the world we live in, and I can rant and rave for Carlos Condit to be deserving of the belt, but he doesn't have it. He could get a rematch. I would love to see it happen. If not, we get Robbie Lawler, Tyron Woodley, and that's going to be an amazing fight too. So that's basically, I mean, to put it simple, that's the way it goes. And Condit, I think if I'm him, it's not a bad idea for him. I mean, if he's done with the sport, if he feels this way, if he feels like he can't give anything else, which I honestly don't think Condit could have put up a better fight against Lawler. I thought he fought almost the perfect fight in his mind with the game plan, the way he executed it. So we'll have to see where it goes. 195 as a pay-per-view itself, I thought was very enjoyable. To get into it more, Stipe Miocic, Andrei Arlovski. Miocic dropped him like a bad habit very early, and he ran up to Dana White, frighteningly screamed in his face, "I want my title shot." And Dana White, with the screaming heavyweight in front of him, said, "Yeah, no, that will work."
Especially after what he saw he do to Arlovski.
Yeah, especially after seeing that. So the Dustin Poirier Joseph Duffy fight was very good. That was on the Fight Pass card.
Yep.
Which was enjoyable. I mean,
Poirier got some surgery done today.
Yeah. Brian Ortega beat Diego Brandao. Albert Tumenov, like I mentioned, defeated Lorenzo Larkin via a split decision, which I thought Tumenov won that pretty. Like he won 2 rounds and Larkin won 1, and that's the way it should have went. I didn't know what the other judge was seeing there. And then otherwise, it was not a monotonous night of fights. It was an average card, boosted by the fact that you had the Tumenov. The top 3 fights were fantastic.
That's all you can ask for the UFC point of view.
Mm-hmm. And we'll get into Dillashaw Cruz next week, because when you look at that fight card, holy shnikes, this thing is loaded, because you're looking at Dillashaw, Dominic Cruz for the bantamweight title, and we'll make our picks and preview it. But let's just say I'm feeling another title change in the wind, Sean. So
okay.
Let's see how it goes. Anthony Pettis, Eddie Alvarez, with the winner possibly getting Khabib Nurmagomedov, as he that was inferred on UFC Tonight earlier Wednesday evening. Which, hell, whenever we get to see Khabib Nurmagomedov fight, I would like to see the Eagle fight again, because he's been out with so many injuries, and getting Pettis or Alvarez, I think Pettis has got the advantage in that fight. Showtime's kind of flown under the radar since losing his title. Travis Brown, Matt Mitrione, Ross Pearson, and Francisco Trinidaldo round up the main card, so that should be really fun. So there's a lot to get to this week. And moving on from 195, there was news Donald Cerrone is going to be fighting against Tim Means at 170, which is the first fight ever for Cowboy at welterweight, meaning that Cowboy's back to his regular self, fighting anywhere, anytime, in any weight class. He'll be fighting in the main event.
Didn't take much time off, did he?
No, which is smart on his part, because he looked terrible against Abel Dos Anjos. So maybe it's just Cowboy can't wait. Like he has to fight like every month. Maybe that will get him back in the swing of things, because he was on an 8-fight win streak until getting shellacked by the champion in the UFC Orlando fight. So Cowboys fighting the main event of the Pittsburgh fight night. And we got some news regarding the women's bantamweight division today via UFC Tonight. And the big news was earlier this week, Holly Holm signed a multi-year deal with the UFC. You can find that on the Full Mount MMA.com. It was first reported by ESPN's Brett Okamoto that Holmes signed a multi-year contract extension. Dana White confirmed the news on Monday. No disclosure on the value or the contract length, but it's assuming it's a hefty increase from whatever she was getting. She's your new champion. And we talked about it in that article. There were two options for her on the table: fighting Ronda Rousey at UFC 200 or fighting Miesha Tate earlier on, because I don't think anybody else can jump Miesha Tate for that next title shot, if you will. But we found out the answer to that question via UFC Tonight, which, I mean, if the UFC wants to use Fox Sports 1's weekly show just to break news, I'm cool with it. Go for it. It makes our jobs easier when we record on a Wednesday evening. So Dana White confirmed that Holly Holm will fight before the Ronda Rousey rematch. He said, quote, Holly Holm will fight before she fights Ronda. He did not confirm an opponent, a venue, date, time, nothing, but it's Miesha Tate. After beating Jessica Ai, she's the most experienced and highly ranked fighter in that division. And I wanted to get your take. What does this mean in the grand scheme of things? Before we talk about Holly Holm fighting again, what does this mean for everybody in that division and the UFC in general?
Well, the first thing I think of is Rousey doesn't want to fight yet.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing is this could be a bad move by the UFC.
I don't think it's a bad move as much as they were kind of forced into it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, yes, I mean you can't have her sit on the sideline until Rousey's ready to fight. But at the same time, I don't know if you throw her in there with Miesha Tate either.
Yeah, because we don't. I mean, for as much as Holly Holm looked so good against Ronda Rousey, that was one fight, and we legitimately don't know what she's going to be like as a champion.
Not only that, but also Rousey stood right in front of her. Tate's not going to stand in front of her.
Tate's going to make this fight ugly.
Yeah.
Because that's what Miesha Tate does. She doesn't make these fights exciting, thrilling fights. She's going out to win.
Yeah.
The fight against Jessica Ai at UFC on Fox 16 in Chicago was not pretty.
Nope. But
she won by unanimous decision. And I think you hit the nail on the head. We compared it. We were talking about this before the podcast. This is Conor McGregor, Chad Mendes for the women's bantamweight division, because you have this big cash cow. Conor McGregor was it for the featherweight division, and you've got this big fight set up. You got McGregor Aldo. Aldo gets hurt, out. You put in Chad Mendes, who's a dangerous fighter in his own right. Of course, yes. Mendes has lost past two, but Mendes was a dangerous fighter at the time. Wouldn't you agree at that point?
No, 100%. I mean, look who he's lost to: McGregor and Edgar. I mean, they're
McGregor, Edgar, and Aldo.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
can't
if you're gonna lose to three, those are the three you probably want to lose to.
Yeah. And going into that fight, yeah, it was a great fight. But what happened if Conor lost? That whole big bad McGregor mantra wouldn't be as effective. And you would lose that big money fight because you'd get Mendes Aldo, which you've seen already. And here lies the problem with the Miesha Tate Holly Holm fight. As much as you want to protect her, keep them away from certain fights to build up momentum. Rousey is hosting Saturday Night Live in 2 weeks. Ronda Rousey will be in the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. Ronda Rousey will be filming movies this upcoming couple months. Will she be at WrestleMania? We don't know. These are things that Ronda Rousey is doing. And I'm not saying that she's not focusing on fighting, because she could be doing this and then prepare for a fight or whatever. UFC 200 in July is that benchmark that everyone's pointing at. I don't know if that happens. And if she had a broken jaw, which was rumored to have happened, Dana White denied it, but the way she kind of phrased her opening remarks in that ESPN long form article, which was great by Ramona Shelburne. She's like, it might be like 3 months before I can eat an apple, and she got rocked. And if she wants to fight in September, October, November, she wants to do that, go ahead. But the UFC's kind of backed into a corner here, and you need Holly Holm to fight someone else in the meantime because you want your chance. You want to capitalize on this momentum because you don't want to just kind of let it draw out because Holly Holm is not going to go on TV or show up at these events and talk so much smack like Conor McGregor does. Holly Holm's a fighting champion. She's hopefully a good champion for her and Jackson Wink and those guys, but it's a very dangerous game because you have this big superstar in the making. And if Holly Holm isn't what that night in Melbourne, Australia said she was, and Miesha Tate wins, this whole fight blows up with her and Ronda.
No, not only that, but then on the other side too is, well, when will Rousey come back? Is it going to be September, October? Will it be longer? I mean, like we played kind of the devil's advocate as far as what if she lost, but also how long do you sit her out? Like you're saying, I mean, they're kind of backed into this corner because what if they said, okay, Miesha Tate versus Nunez or whatever for the winner of that gets a fight with Holly Holm or whatever down the thing, but then you still have Holly sitting on the sideline. I mean, they're backed into a corner where they're going to have to really roll the dice here because, as you said, that fight could get blown up real quick.
And I mean, regardless of whether Holm wins or not, you're talking about a quick turnaround for a fighter. Some fighters like to fight a lot during the year. Some fighters don't. I mean, Conor McGregor wants to fight 4 times a year and defend both belts, as he will say.
Yeah. Well, Holm fought 3 times last year, so she fought 3 times last year.
Which seems to be the average for a fighter.
Yeah.
And if the champion, if they want to fight twice, that's okay. But it's a weird kind of this position to be in. And if she's going to fight in when? March? April? Are you going to turn around and fight in July? Is she going to suffer an injury in that fight?
Yeah, I don't see her turning around that quickly to fight in July, though. I don't think if she fights in March, April, I don't see her fighting July. I just because the way that, especially with Miesha Tate, she's gonna stick in, she's gonna move, she's gonna fight dirty. I got to think, it's going to be a strenuous fight unless, something, out of the ordinary happens, which did happen for Holm in Australia. But I just think she's going to take some kind of damage and she's not going to, be 100% by July to me.
And, I mean, the UFC has this big event, this big eyesore, essentially, in the calendar. 200. You're going to put your biggest card together there. And the way the calendar is kind of shaking out. When are you going to fight? When is McGregor going to fight? If you have this show at Madison Square Garden in April, that you're going to make this big fight, which they have a hold on, but the WBC, the Boxing Federation, has a hold on this as well, just in case the UFC decides to pull out of that and do it somewhere else. McGregor wants to fight 4 times a year, and he would like to win the 155-pound belt, according to Dana White. If McGregor can fight 4 times a year, more power to him. But the guy's had 2 knee injuries.
Yeah.
Already.
I mean, if you're looking at that, he's going to have to fight at least once before March, unless he's going to fight like back to back. I mean, you're looking once every 3 months if you're going to try to fight 4 times.
Essentially, yes. And if McGregor fights in April or March, what's going to happen? Is he going to be able to turn around for July? Jon Jones Cormier, when is that happening? Is that going to happen? Is that fight going to happen in July? Or is that going to happen in April if they do it at the Garden? Like, it's a weird, the way the whole thing is set up. You have a guy like Lawler who can fight at 200 and give you the hell of a show. You're not having Brock Lesnar or Fedor Emelianenko come in for these big name fights that you can just throw them on a card against somebody. I mean, you can definitely have Luke Rockhold fight somebody at UFC 200. Will he wait that long? Like, it's weird how this calendar is set up, and I don't think it's advantageous to the UFC right now. I mean, hell, they can turn around and wait on some of these fights, and that's fine. And I don't have a problem with it at all. But what the amount of events that they have, we have to see how this will all shake out. And Holly Holm and Ronda Rousey is definitely a major key to that scenario, as well as Conor McGregor. And let's switch to McGregor a little bit, because Frankie Edgar's calling him out for running, and he feels like it's not going to happen, which I think really sucks for Frankie Edgar. I'd rather see McGregor clear out 145 and then go up, because I think he's the underdog against Rafael dos Anjos, to me at least. But what do you think is the best move for McGregor at this point in time? Because Holm is going to take care of her business, and she's going to fight earlier, and she has no choice in that. McGregor has a choice. He's probably picking what he wants to do, and Dana White kind of has to go along with it at this point because he's your biggest draw.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it on this pod. I think he needs to, stay at where he's at and clear out that division first. I just think if you move him up, what if he gets rocked? What if he gets taken out? I think it just takes away from him. I think it takes away. Will it kill him? No, most definitely not. But that momentum, that train you got rolling now, a train just became, a car of that train just got derailed. And can you cover from that? Especially now, let's think about this. Let's say Holm and Tate happens in March.
Yeah.
Holm loses the belt to Tate. Now you got McGregor go to 155. He loses, let's just hypothetically saying, the month after.
Yeah.
You've had all this happen in 2 months. And I'm not saying it's going to hurt the UFC train, because they've shown they can market people. But your two big draws, Holm more with Rousey is what I'm referring to as far as the draw, not just Holm. But that match, Holm-Rousey, is off the table. And now you got McGregor suffering a loss. How do you rebuild that for your, if you want to put him on 200, where do you go from there? How do you build that up, I guess, would be my question. And again, that's why people get paid all this money to do. But that is a huge ball that is rolling down that track that has helped derail that car. And how do you fix that, I guess, going into what you expect to be your biggest card?
And we can fantasy book this all we want, but when you look at
100%.
it, a loss will hurt McGregor more at 155 than it will at 145. If he loses to Frankie Edgar, McGregor will go up.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like, okay, I can't make the weight cut anymore. Mm-hmm. Frankie was a terrific fighter, but I'm going up in weight class.
Yeah.
And then you get Edgar Aldo or whatever you want to do. Or if Edgar wants to go up, if they want to do it, and if McGregor beats Rafael dos Anjos for the 155 title. Frankie Edgar's fought in at 155 before.
Yeah, champion versus champion right there.
Champion versus champion, super fight at a catch weight at 155, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
These are your options that you have. And Edgar said, he's pissed over the way things are playing out. He's like, I've been at it for a while now. I've been knocking on the door for a title shot for a while. It started with Cub Swanson. Cub Swanson beat me. He was promised a title shot. I beat him. I finished him in dominating fashion. No, I'm not even considered for a title shot. I take it in stride. I do everything in stride. I really do think I'm a company man, but it's not really panning out for me that way. He said this to Ariel Helwani on the MMA Hour. And I think Edgar is just more marketable. I think that fight's more marketable than the one against Dos Anjos. At least to me.
Oh, yeah, for the marketability, because you're going to have Edgar talking back. You're going to have the talk is going to go back and forth. It's not just, you're not going to have, I'm sure UFC, no matter how much you want to say it's not like wrestling, it's probably got writers on the side for Dos Anjos to say, hey, when he says something, say this, because Dos Anjos isn't going to know how to talk back to him.
It's a shame. Because Dos Anjos it's a terrific fighter.
Oh, he's a great fighter, but he just.
The jokes have been made. Oh, he looks like Frankenstein, but hell, he fights like a monster, man. He's absolutely incredible. And people were talking about, the better fight would have been Cowboy Cerrone, because him and Conor would have just talked crap to each other forever, which is true.
Yeah, they would have talked people into the arena.
But you want to talk about the better fight? It's Dos Anjos and McGregor.
Yes.
And
the build-up maybe not so much, but the fight, yes.
It's too from the UFC standpoint, it's too similar. You get this Brazilian I mean, for lack of a better word, monster.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This monster hanging over this division. When you get a guy who's so tough as nails, like it's like I would if right now, Conor and Edgar, to me, it's an even fight. At 155, Dos Anjos is the clear favorite in my mind. And I'm the biggest Conor McGregor guy out there. But
we just don't know how he's going to come in at 155. You don't know. He could be a totally different fighter.
I mean, he could be just smaller compared to the other guy.
Yeah.
And that's Conor's natural fighting weight.
Or but maybe he doesn't cut right, or maybe doesn't, maybe something goes off or something, and he comes in, I mean, these fighters are I won't say programmed, but he knows, okay, this is what I need to do to get to 145. I know what I need to do to get here. Will it be the same if he's going into 155? Will he come in, I mean, I know he's going to come in heavier because of the weight class, but is it going to be, good weight, or is it going to be sluggish weight?
Yeah. Because, I mean, watching that weigh-in, hey, Aldo looked better to me than McGregor.
Oh, yeah. When I looked at the weigh-in, I was like, wow, Aldo looks good. He's, even played around with I was like, oh, look, he's trying to do the mind games. Then the fight happened, and not so much.
No, not at all. So it's a good and bad position to be, because the UFC's got to nail this right. Because when you look at all the turnover at champion, everyone, you got a new bantamweight champion when Henry Morale lost to TJ Dillashaw. Like, this is all within the last 2 years. McGregor at featherweight, Dos Anjos at lightweight, Robbie Lawler at welterweight, Luke Rockhold at middleweight, Daniel Cormier at light heavyweight, Verdum at heavyweight. Like, this heavy turnover. And you want to be able to keep these guys in these positions, because that's the way easily. Like, if you have a new champion every 6 months, it's insane to watch. It's great, but it's hard to market a guy. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I mean, one guy you can always rely on at this point is Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson to stay champion. The problem is nobody can give him a good shot at flyweight.
Yeah, so I can't believe people weigh in at that weight. I still can't believe they got a flyweight. I can't. I mean, maybe because I'm so big, I just can't see it. I don't know.
You're not, come on. It couldn't be that bad. Flyweight, 125.
125. I'm like double that, man. I'm almost double. I'm double with a quarter on that.
Yeah. But, hell, we could see new weight divisions. You never know the way that the sport is going when it comes to weight cutting and stuff like that.
No, definitely. I mean, it's something that's been brought up in other, smaller organizations. But look, if it works, and maybe it's something that they look at. I mean, I don't see it happening in the near future, but it's a possibility.
And speaking of weight, I want to move on to a story that kind of came across a little quickly, but I do want to mention it. That new pound for pound rankings out on UFC.com. And an old face has returned to the top of the pound for pound rankings.
Imagine that.
Jon Jones is now the pound for pound UFC fighter.
I just think it's hilarious.
I mean, do you think it's wrong?
I'm not going to say it's wrong, but the man hasn't fought in what?
I mean, we're looking at a year.
So, I mean, yeah, and he looks like a heavyweight. I mean, he's deadlifting cars now.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we know about it? I mean, it's his reputation that's got him to number one, not anything he's done in the cage in the last year.
And, I mean, regardless of what you think of these UFC rankings, because there are some guys that don't even know what the hell they're doing when it comes to these rankings. Like, for example, and I use this example because Marcelo Ruscio from Canal Combate is one of the guys where you can just look at the voting panelists and go down. He's got Jose Aldo ranked third as a pound-for-pound fighter. Above 8 spots above Conor McGregor, who, he lost to. So these aren't the rankings for the UFC haven't always been the best. But, I mean, there's a way to streamline that. It's not as bad as, it probably is as bad as the Baseball Hall of Fame, but that's a whole other story to get involved with. But regardless, Jon Jones is the top of the pound-for-pound rankings.
Wait a minute. So who do you have in the – where was Jose Aldo?
Jose Aldo is ranked third in pound-for-pound best fighter.
I got him in 7 on mine.
Well, no, I'm saying this specific panelist, who's a Brazilian panelist, ranked him as third.
Oh, okay. I'm not looking at the same one you're looking at.
Yeah, because when you go to the UFC.com/rankings, you can go to the voting panelists section and click on if you have a favorite writer. Unfortunately, we have not gotten our invitations yet, Sean.
This guy.
I hear they're in the mail, so we'll see how it goes. But when I look at this, I don't see any names that I actually know. So there aren't the heavy hitters of the sites that we use, as well as the fullmountmma.com. So, of course, I am a company man. Don't worry about that.
That's right. But we'll just call you Edgar. You're the Frankie Edgar of the fullmountmma.com.
Oh, I try to be. But I think the fullmountmma.com treats me better than the UFC treats Frankie Edgar.
Oh, no, most definitely, yes.
I wanted to transition from Jones because obviously the fight is Daniel Cormier. When that happened, we don't know. I mean, they're just probably picking the time for it whenever they want to. Unfinished business. These dudes do not like each other. Jones beat Cormier last January, defending his belt. Of course, the personal issues, the car accident, the almost jail time, the community service, all that kind of stuff. Jones back in the swing of things. He was ranked. That fight was ranked second on the 4 fights the UFC should make in 2016. The article that you can find on the fullmountmma.com or on Twitter at the fullmount. But Jones was taking shots at Cormier via Instagram. It's starting to build up again. And as much as, I mean, Jones and Anthony Johnson at their weigh-in or their promotional press conference before, of course, the fight was canceled, kind of made fun of the fact about, like, they almost had a brawl on stage. And because Jones and Cormier, did have a brawl on stage.
Mm-hmm.
This is like this. I mean, it's not a sleeper fight, but this is the kind of fight where it's like this is building. This could be the biggest fight of the year if they do it right. And
now, you mean the biggest fight of the year or the biggest build up to a fight of the year?
It could be the biggest build up. I mean, build up, but better than a McGregor fight. Because Jon Jones was that guy. Was the dude.
Yes. And
he can be the dude again.
Yes.
So, I don't know. I think it's something to take a look at as we go forward. And a couple other fights. I mean, we mentioned Conor McGregor, Frankie Edgar, Holly Holm, and Ronda Rousey, but wanted to get into a new story that you wrote about that broke yesterday involving a opponent for Phil Brooks, is that his name?
Yep. That's Mr. CM Punk to those wrestling fans.
Yeah, remember him?
Yeah.
CM Punk's apparently going to fight this year.
The cult of personality.
Yes. He is going to fight, and I'm trust me. Punk in WWE, fantastic storyteller, great athlete. We don't know how it's going to translate to the UFC. It's been a year.
Yep.
He suffered a shoulder injury in the fall, which derailed him a little bit. But it appears as though Punk is on the way to finding an opponent. Dana White looking for a fight series, which you can see on YouTube, trying to find fighters. He found Station Northcutt there. In the latest episode of that series, Dana White was scouting fighters from 2 different promotions, and somebody he found called out CM Punk after his first professional win. Mm-hmm. The fighter's name, get ready for this one, Mickey Gall, a New Jersey-based welterweight who trains out of the Miller Brothers.
If that doesn't say MMA fighter, I don't know what does. Mickey Gall.
Doesn't say Irish MMA fighter. Mickey. I don't know what else does. He said, "Hey, Dana White, I don't know if CM Punk is his opponent, but I'd love to fight that man. Punk, hey, Punk, I'm 1-0.
Yeah, but see, he's already 1 fight ahead of Punk, so he's elevated past the Punk range.
I remember a long time ago, you can find it in our archives, I put together kind of a list of possible CM Punk's opponents. And we thought, Punk would kind of get somebody we knew at a certain point. Carl Pendred, who has retired now because he well, he wasn't very entertaining, number one, and he just seemed to struggle. I put together a list of possible opponents. This was back in June of 2015. Pendred, of course, was on that list, and they talked a lot. I had Yoshihiro Akiyama, who was 39 years old, but he was like the star over in Asia, and then a couple other ones. Threw in Dan Hardy. Obviously, that's not going to happen.
No.
The Outlaw. I mean, he's been doing a terrific job broadcasting for the UFC. I don't think Hardy needs to fight again, personally.
No, just...
I love the way he breaks down fights. And Roger Zapata, who is 4-1. I think he might be 5-1 now. I don't know. And the other one was Nate Diaz, just for laughs, you know.
Yeah, no, I got you. He's busy trying to get McGregor right now.
Punk is going to fight a dude who nobody knows who the hell he is.
Yeah, he will fight somebody from Looking for a Fight.
Yes. And there was kind of a back and forth between Dave Scholler, the head of PR, and Punk on Twitter during UFC 195, kind of mentioning like, hey, I'm looking for a fight. And there were some bad puns involved, but eventually it kind of got to talking to UFC 200. They obviously putting it out there. I don't know if it'll be a fight pass sort of thing, because clearly the company is pushing that at the moment. But Punk is the type of guy who's very competitive, and if he's turned into this MMA fighter, I would love to see it at 200. And I don't care if it's against some scrub or not. We need to see Punk in the octagon in the first half of the year, or his career will never get off the ground.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's do or die.
It's something that has to change, because regardless of what you think of the guy, he's going to be a draw. Everyone's going to tune in whenever they announce it.
Yep.
And they're going to need to find a way to build up his opponent too. Yep. Or just have Punk go all CM, have Phil Brooks be all CM Punk.
You kind of do the thing what they do with Northcutt and your buddy. I forgot his name already.
Oh, Cody Fister.
Yeah, Fister. I couldn't think of Fister.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they'll do something like that. You know, the build up. They'll make that guy kind of seem like the arrogant one, I think. But I don't know how you make CM Punk not be the arrogant one, man. That's his stick. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how they do it, but they're gonna have to do something kind of like that on a YouTube or a Fight Pass or something to build this fight up, because it's gonna sell regardless. But you do have to build up that opponent to make it seem like no matter what, if Punk pulls it out, he's beaten somebody.
Yeah, it's an interesting position for Punk to be in at this point. UFC's in a lot. This is a very good position, a good spot for the UFC, but it's a very tricky spot for them. They have to make the right moves in order to maximize their potential. What they have, Conor McGregor as a two division champion, or should he stick to one and then go up? Should Holly Holm has to win her fight against Miesha Tate to keep this Rousey fight in order? Will Rousey commit to this fight, or will she realize at this point, it's she doesn't need to fight anymore. She doesn't need to. She's a movie star. She's gonna be a television star. She's in everything. She's just.
She doesn't need UFC as much anymore.
The UFC needs Ronda Rousey more than Ronda Rousey needs the UFC, which is scary. She was the biggest thing coming.
Which may be our answer to what we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe UFC is starting to realize that.
I mean, you're going to have to figure that out. And remember, she's keeping her coaching staff.
Yeah.
Which, that's up to you how you want to interpret that.
I think she got kicked harder than she thought.
Yes. And they apparently didn't have a problem with what was going on in the first round, despite everyone else shouting at their televisions, what is she doing? So we'll see. We should start to hear more about this stuff, especially probably by February. We'll have a better look at what March and April are going to look like. And that April show, especially, whether or not it will be at Madison Square Garden, who will be on the card, will it be a Jones-Cormier rematch, and will that be it? Will Weidman fight against Jacare Souza, who wants a rematch against, quote, dirty Yoel Romero, who he calling him dirty because he thought he fought dirty, which I didn't really notice that. I mean, I thought Jacare beat Romero in that fight at UFC 194. He mentioned he's fighting, like he said, Chris Weidman, who I think makes perfect sense for both fighters. And then the winner of that would get Luke Rockhold after Romero, who won, should get the title shot because that's basically what it was. And according to Sousa's manager, he wants Weidman or Romero by the end of March or April. So there's going to be a lot of fighters in this March and April time period that want these fights, which is awesome for us. What does it mean for July? And that's the key we'll have to look forward to going forward. Is there any other news that you wanted to get to? I know Josh Koscheck is out of his Bellator fight, which, I mean, Josh Koscheck is fighting for Bellator now, which is something. Any Dada 5000 Kimbo Slice updates for us, Sean?
Well, I was on a show on another network, and we had Dada 5000 on.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
The star of Dogfight on Netflix, the Billy Corbin
and actually,
film.
there will be a Dogfight 2 coming out.
Interesting.
It was released. Billy Corbin will be doing the filming for that as well.
Okay, well, as much as I make fun of Bellator, and I'm making fun of the fact that they're having Kimbo Slice and Kimbo Slice's former bodyguard fight each other in a main event along with Ken Shamrock and Hoist Gracie as part of their big blowout event, Dogfight was a great movie. Yeah. Billy Corbin's a terrific director.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know much about Billy Corbin, Cocaine Cowboys and The U, which the 30 for 30, which everyone loved,
and The U too,
and yeah, and
part two. Sorry, it can't be The U two because they didn't like that, so it's The U part two.
The U part two, Cocaine Cowboys, and Dogfight 2. Interesting. I would recommend watching Dogfight though, because it is an interesting look at. I mean, if you were interested in the sideshow stuff, I mean, of Kimbo and that kind of fighting, you get to kind of see the background of these guys, which it's tough to watch. It's very interesting and intriguing watch. I
mean, they're trying to do a good job of selling the fight. I will say to that, it's they're trying to put a storyline together.
And when you look at MMA at its roots, kind of has that freak show component to it. And this is what this kind of is. It's like, where else would you see something like this? And people will tune in to watch the Bellator stuff. If I have nothing to do, literally, probably will tune into it too. What I didn't tune into, Fedor Emelianenko beating Jadeep Singh on New Year's Eve, which apparently that happened in like inside of 2 minutes at their Risen promotion, which, I mean, I don't know who he's going to fight next, but maybe it'll be somebody with more than 2 fights of experience, Sean. I don't know. What have you heard?
What is that? I'm sorry, man. I wasn't.
What have you heard about Fedor's possible next opponent?
Oh, I don't know, man. I mean, I know what I saw online, and I thought it was funny with him getting called out by. Let me try to find it here real quick. Make sure I don't misspeak here. Let me see where I can find it. Here it is. Do you want me to say what it says here?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
All right. It says that the lead article, the lead of the article is King Mo. It's at King Mo's official Twitter says King Mo versus Fedor needs to take place in the at Bellator MMA cage. Make it free on Spike TV. Retweet this.
Yes.
And then he goes into even more detail and says King Mo versus Fedor, Dallas, Texas.
Now, the problem with that is, King Mo, Muhammad Lawler, is 19-4 and 1 no contest. That's way too many fights for somebody to fight Fedor. Fedor is on the CM Punk plan right now.
Yeah. I mean, his last opponent was 2-0.
He was 2-0. Yeah. Now he's 2-1.
2-1.
So yeah, that's a thing.
Maybe Mickey Gall Next
Yeah.
one, Fedor's.
Yeah, maybe CM Punk. It's screw weight divisions. Let's just do it.
We'll do a catch weight.
Yeah, we'll do a catch weight fight at 200 pounds. Can Fedor drop down that much? I don't think so. But yeah, it's a transitional time for the UFC. A hell of a start to the new year. Still think Carlos Condit was deserving of that win, but
Oh boy, give it a rest, man.
I'll
Your article was wrong. Mine was right.
Hey man, we don't write those articles based on who we think is going
No,
to.
that's true. 100% correct.
We are given a side that we should write about, and we explain and we analyze because we're not biased here.
No, we're not. But the one I wish I was the Holly Holm one, which I was totally off on. Because I had Holm and I said it right down the thing, and man, I should have just been like, no, yeah. But I did say she had a 0.01% chance of winning,
which was more than what I gave her.
Yeah,
and now we're talking about Holly Holm fighting Miesha Tate.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Anything else going on, Sean, that we need to mention besides that you can find us on Twitter ranting and raving about this stuff, on at the Full Mount, at SS Sports Talk, at BCoyle11. Mine's getting more football-y related.
Yeah, you got the playoffs, and mine's getting a little more college basketball too, because we got a good thing going on here with the Hurricanes, men and women's basketball, and there's a little hockey team down here now. I just noticed, Florida Panthers.
The best team in South Florida is the Florida Panthers, and I don't know much about hockey.
I just realized they play in Sunrise. I didn't even know that.
I heard tickets are pretty cheap, so I think
not anymore. 8 games ago they were. Now they're getting a little more.
They've got Jaromir Jagr, the Fedor Emelianenko of hockey. No, Jagr's much tougher than Fedor. Who also, he made it into the NHL All-Star game, which his announcement was, thanks but no thanks. I want to go to the Bahamas instead.
Yeah, they had Luongo was on a show down here, and he's like, I think he'd rather just take the time off.
Yeah, you're gonna force a 43-year-old man to do 3-on-3. Which not good, not a good idea.
Oh, that's funny.
In any case, we want to thank you listening for the listening to TFM Live, the official podcast of the Full Mount MMA.com. Not about the Florida Panthers or about the Baseball Hall of Fame or the Miami Hurricanes. But we want to thank you guys for listening. We'll have plenty of stuff next week. We'll preview the fight night in Boston, which should be a barn burner. TJ Dillashaw, Dominic Cruz, which, I mean, you want to talk about a blur in the octagon, that fight is going to be fantastic. I can't wait. Showtime Pettis, Eddie Alvarez, the co-main event of that card, which is crazy because Showtime Pettis, maybe we'll see a Showtime kick. You never know. I mean, hell, if he's going to jump off the cage one more time, go for it because we'll freak out. And it's a free fight, Fox Sports 1, so check that out as well. We'll break down all that. Hopefully we get some news. Maybe the gears will start rolling on this MMA New York stuff, which... Yeah,
hopefully they'll start giving out some of these fights for some of these upcoming cards.
Yes, because that would be something. Maybe they'll get their overall pound-for-pound rankings fight and not have Jose Aldo third by some Brazilian writers. Come on, guys. Let's not show bias here. And maybe Jon Jones will have a fight by the time.
Maybe he'll earn the number one spot.
The pound for pound,
or re-earn the number one spot.
Yeah. And shout out to Martin the Hitman Campman, who retired today as well. Full respect for that dude. You've been doing it for a long time. So we'll see how it goes. And then, hey, we can preview. Never thought I'd say this one. Ronda Rousey hosting Saturday Night Live. Preview that in a couple weeks.
Right.
That's just, I don't know. I mean, first female athlete. Or third female athlete, first ever combat athlete.
Not well, they got 2 boxers were on there.
Oh,
Foreman
okay.
and I think it was Hagler.
Oh yeah, Marvelous Marvin Hagler.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing nothing, watch Hagler Hearns, because that is the greatest fight of all time, bar none, in any sport.
I'm gonna have to go watch all these fights now.
Oh, come on, there's plenty of stuff to do. By the time you come back next week, we'll have plenty of stuff to talk about. So. Thank you guys for listening. For Sean, I'm Brian. Have a good day.
Way to go, Robbie.
The TFM Live Podcast is brought to you by The Full Mount, MMA.com. Check us out on Twitter at The Full Mount.